return to your seats. I've been given permission by Representative Miller to start now, and I appreciate that. We have some members coming in, and they're out about 5 minutes. If there's no objection, I'm going to we're going to stand at ease for about 5 minutes. But you know me, I like to start on time. So we're starting on time, but now we're going to stand at ease until a couple of members that have texted that they're on their way in. And then I will tell you what we're going to do. We'll do the bill introductions. We're going to work a couple of bills. We're going to work the Convention of States, and we're going to work the Kansas State Fair bill. I think we have a few. I have a bill introduction. I know there's a couple more, but let's just stand at ease. I'm trying to. I know Representative Thomas just texted. He's about 5 minutes out.
I don't know about Burris.
Would you text him?
Yeah.
I'm going to see where Representative Burris is at. Representative Clayton, do you know where Representative Hoyt is?
Yes, I do. She has just arrived.
So if we wait 5 minutes or so, she may be here. Okay. Representative Etley? Oh, okay. Senate Bill 2 and HCR 5027 will be the two bills. And if we have time, I may pull in my file and pull another one out that we've heard. Yeah. Yeah. That will be the lottery. We will just go through and pick one out. One that I think won't take a lot of time. I would like to get everybody out before 10:30, so the folks that want to go home can go home. So, but let's just stand at ease until a couple of members show up. The roads are really bad, I understand, from Johnson County in. So, just stand. This will be change one for today. I have a member that wants to introduce a bill. Just an introduction that she needs to go to appropriations. So I am going to open up bill introductions for members. Representative, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce RS 3308, an act concerning conventions under the Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States, prescribing the appointment and qualification of delegates, duties, and responsibilities thereof, requiring legislative approval prior to final vote for delegates. Just might be of interest to note it has no effect on what you're doing now. It's simply an advise and consent process.
I understand. I would think I would probably call that a trailer bill.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very well. Without objection from the committee, we've accepted your bill. Thank you, and have fun in appropriations, if that's possible. Come in, gentlemen. We know the roads are a little hazardous. So we're standing at ease for 5 minutes. We've got a couple more members that have texted that they're about 5 minutes out. Well, while we're standing at ease, does anyone have any interesting stories from the ice? I would imagine my colleague down at the far end. I'm not sure if you worked last night, but interesting accidents out there.
No, I stayed in town. They acted like they didn't need me down there, which is a little bothersome, but I stayed here.
Okay. Well, if you'd went home, I bet you would have been out there at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I could introduce my mom.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that. I was going to do that. I had it on my mind. Our esteemed vice chair has a very special guest here today. So, Representative Arnberger, would you please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My mother, she produced a very great child, and she is in the audience today just for a little bit. We have my soon-to-be sister-in-law. She's trying on wedding dresses today in Kansas City. So she's going to head out, and then when I'm done with committee, I'm going to head to Kansas City so I can watch her try on dresses and hopefully say yes to the dress.
Well, that's great. I must have done something wrong because when my daughter was getting married, she tried them and they had me there. But then I understood why.
You were paying for it?
I was paying for it. That was it. Representative Mosier, you've got one on weddings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Almost 41 years ago, my dad picked out my wedding dress. He
Without
went with
you?
us, and I came out of the room, and he said, "That's the one." And it was the one. So dads are pretty important for more than just the money.
Yeah. I was wondering after the fourth or fifth dress, and all these other, my wife and a bunch of her friends were all there, and they'd ooh and awe, and I just kind of sit in the chair. And then when the decision was made, she came over and said, "This is the one, Dad." I said, "Well, where do I go pay?" And but I enjoyed doing that. But
Did you drink champagne?
they did. I was driving. But it is another life. I don't remember that years ago when I got married 40 years ago or whatever. But it's maybe I missed that. Maybe my father-in-law did pay for it. I don't know. Yes, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have an announcement to make. Wanted to invite all of my colleagues here on Fed and State and any of those that are in the Capitol building today. At 11 o'clock on the second floor of the Rotunda, there'll be about 70 students that come from the Salina area, and they're with the Excel After School Achievement Program, and they're going to narrate the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and a short tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I'd invite you all to come down at 11 a.m. and to show your support for these students.
Thank you. Thank you for the announcement. And for a few of us on this committee, we remember that. It was a big deal, especially the 1965 Voting Rights Act. But I'm going to turn to Representative Mosier and Representative Garber to talk about, we're going to have a hearing. I've agreed to it. We're going to have some classes. Representative Mosier, would you please, or Representative Garber, both?
Thank you. A constituent from Representative Garber's district contacted me and Representative Garber about their fourth grade class being very interested in the state fruit. And so I've made contact with them, and they've made contact with the chairman's office, and maybe either we'll be on WebEx to just watch and testify, or maybe be here in person. I don't know, but Representative Garber can give a lot more history on the development of that bill.
Turn it over to you, Representative Garber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, a fourth grade teacher from Sabetha contacted me about coming and talking about how a bill was introduced, and they wanted to introduce a bill for the state fruit, but they got 22 or 23 different fourth and fifth grade classes, I believe, involved, and they voted on January 28th. And they voted, there were 4 different fruits that, there may have been more than that, but the top 4, out of the top 2 was Sandhill plum, and the red mulberry, I believe, was the second one. And it was pretty interesting. They said it went back and forth all day, and the final person voted, and the Sand Hill Plum won by about 13 or 17 votes, about the size of a classroom. So it was really interesting for the kids, and they're really excited about watching what goes on down here. So
Well,
appreciate you running that bill, sir.
what I plan on doing is having maybe the class be on one WebEx, and that we could see the class will explain the procedures. And then, anytime we get to teach young people, very few people understand what we do up here. And so we'll have the class on. We will we'll go through it, and Representative Mosier, Representative Garber will be able to talk to them. If they have a conferee, they pick a conferee from their class that wants to offer some testimony. We'll accept that. And they will not be here when we work the bill. That'll be a different day. But I think that's a great opportunity for the classes. Yes, Representative Garber.
Valley Falls, several students made videos, and I'll try to look for that email and I'll send it to everybody on the committee. But they were really good for fourth grade students. They really did a good job. I shouldn't say it like that, but they impressed me. Let me put it that way.
They grew up with that technology. They're better than you and I probably with it. But yes, WebEx. Are we ready? You want to tell me who's on WebEx?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to suggest that if you are going to go along with that, with the class, either coming here and maybe testifying at the podium for the state fruit, if the CA could let us know in the audio video department, we would be more than happy to help facilitate that. We understand that that some of the kids are, well, my stature and shorter, and so if they need a box or something to stand on to help being see better at the podium, we'll be more than happy to help with that.
We appreciate that, and we will be working with that. It will not happen until after turnaround. We all know that, and we'll try to pick a date. I see Representative Hoyt's here, and I think Representative Hoyt has a guest. And Representative Hoyt, if you want to get one of these chairs over you, he can sit over there beside you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll see if you'd like to come hang out back here.
Okay.
Adam's on the elevator.
We have one representative on the elevator. Let's hope it doesn't break down. Hope it's been inspected.
Probably not.
Yeah. Still waiting for Representative Henderson, but I understand the roads from Kansas City to here, not good at all. Yeah. In fact, some say they're worse than they were yesterday.
I'm just going to say that if everybody hasn't had a chance to try some sand plum jelly, you all need to try some. It's good stuff.
You're so funny.
Mrs. Armberger, if you would, at the conclusion, there's several members that would like to ask you questions about your daughter. You'd be glad to answer. It's like Paul Harvey. We want the rest of the story. I'm sure she was a wonderful child. She's been a real asset up here. Go ahead.
So where are you going shopping for dresses?
They're in I don't know if it's in the Lenexa City Center area, but I think it's called One Bridle.
Okay.
And so I was looking that up. What our concern is parking. I don't know what it's like with parking down there. That's one.
The city center has a parking garage, and
Okay.
so that's what I would suggest. So
Okay.
I was also going to suggest that you grab lunch in my district, but it sounds like you all will be in Woodard's district, so just make sure you spend a lot of money there. We love it when you guys do. I hope you have a good time.
We will. And we're trying on bridesmaids dresses this afternoon. So
Okay. Well, we've kind of used that subject up.
Get started.
Okay. All right. We're no longer standing at ease. We're back in session. But we do have the members here now. Bill introductions. The chair has one bill introduction. It's 22 RS 3311, Mike. This has to do with shared parenting. It will go to the Judiciary Committee. We will not hear that, but I've made arrangements with the chair of the Judiciary. If I introduced it and we cleared it through the speaker, as I would. And with that, without objection, we've accepted that. All right, committee, let's start up. If you'll go into your files and pull up House Concurrent Resolution 5027, Convention of States. As to this, what is the pleasure of the committee? Representative Arnberger.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Concurrent Resolution 5027 favorably for passage.
Do I have a second from Representative Epley? Discussion. Representative Hoyt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought some of the questions brought up during the hearing that got me thinking. And one point that was made was how do we make sure that Native American culture is reflected as part of this process. And there was also some, it seems like we don't really know for sure how the delegates would be appointed. That process could be a little bit fluid. So since our government rules and laws have historically been molded by a very specific demographic, I would like to make sure that women are included in the sequel, that Native voices are reflected. So I'd like to offer an amendment.
Thank you. Amendment. Just stand fast. Would you like to explain your amendment?
Yeah, the amendment would require that the Kansas delegation to the Convention of the States would include a current or former member of the Kansas House of Representatives or Kansas Senate who is a Native American woman.
Thank you. Is there a second to the amendment? Representative Clayton has seconded. Discussion on the amendment. Yes, sir. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for the maker of the amendment, if I may.
I'm sorry.
A question for the maker of the amendment.
Yes, you may.
Okay. Why are we narrowing this down to a former or current representative or Kansas senator? It seems like we're narrowing it down to, I'm unaware, maybe 3 or 4 individuals.
Yeah, I thought on that, and the reason that I decided to make it as somebody who has participated in government before is I do believe that as we go through these processes, we become more familiar with how laws are made, and I just think that I hope that all of us sitting here feel like it is made serving either in the House or the Senate has made us capable of representing something of this of high importance.
Mr. Chair, if I may, a follow-up.
You may.
What happens if the current or former member of the Kansas House of Representatives or Kansas Senate who is Native American woman that is chosen, again, we're in a very narrow field with just a couple, refuses to go or refuses to be a delegate?
That is part of, I think, some of how we don't have answers of how the delegation is selected. So we got to hope that we continue electing more Native American women to office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Maybe I have a question for research, and maybe they can give that to me or not. How many Native American females have served in the Kansas House of Representatives? And I'm going to say 10 years, in the last 10 years. I think it's a reasonable, because you have a small pool. So I just wondered how many members that are presently active or served in the last 10 years. Research, can you get that, or is that something we can't do now? Probably not. Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, would you allow me to make a friendly amendment to my own amendment?
I will let you make a substitute amendment to
Okay.
your amendment.
I would be willing to change it to just any Native American woman in Kansas who has held elected office.
Okay, I'm going to wait for the revisor here. Fine. Okay, so we're changing it, my understanding, from the Kansas House of Representatives or the Kansas Senate to any elected office in the state of Kansas.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and that would be your substitute motion.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to the substitute motion? Representative Clayton. Thank you. Discussion on the substitute motion on the amendment. On the amendment, substitute motion for the amendment. Which is the amendment? Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the substitute motion to the amendment, it would take out the piece of being in Kansas House of Representatives or Senate. Is that correct?
That's correct. To any elected official that has held office. And that's not descriptive. It could be a mayor or city council or. And maybe I'll need a question for the revisor. Would that be a tribal council also? Would that's not an elected official from the state of Kansas. So.
Add tribal council, sure, if you want. Public official.
Public official, would that qualify? I don't know. And probably nobody does.
Make sure that it's included tribal official, public official.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyways, further discussion on the substitute motion on the amendment. Representative Howe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a comment regarding the substitute amendment and the amendment itself, if I may.
You may.
It's important that we keep to the original language of this bill because so far 17 states have adopted identical language, and it's very important to the integrity of this process. You know, this resolution is not about Republicans or Democrats or any particular one group or another. This is about our system of government and the balance of power between the federal government and the states. And so I would oppose the amendments being offered. However, I will work with my colleagues to ensure that when the time comes, if Congress shall call a convention of states, if we do get the 2/3 of the states to sign and apply for a convention of states, I would certainly work with my colleagues to make sure that we have a representative delegation that would attend such convention. So I can only give you my personal assurance that if I'm here when that happens, I would certainly work with everybody to make sure they have a voice. But ultimately, it would take 3/4 of the states to ratify any proposed amendments. So it's going to have broad support. It's going to have Republicans and Democrats. It's going to have independents. It's going to have libertarians. And we need to make sure our tribal governments have their voice too. And I would certainly want to see that happen. So all I can do is give you my assurance to see that through. And I would ask my colleagues to oppose both substitute and the underlying amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I would have one comment on this. I appreciate the representative's comments that every state has to file to pass an identical amendment. The other thing is, if this morning, I just introduced a bill that I referred to as a trailer bill, which will have the more specifics into it. So I would think, and I would expect, Representative, if your amendment fails today, that you could bring this amendment again on the workings of how it would work, which is the trailer bill. Yes, Representative Miller.
I know there were others before me, but I wanted to ask a question on what you just said regarding an identical amendment. Would you explain what the point was?
The point was that my understanding, and it's only a layman's understanding of this, is that each state, the 13 states that have passed it, all have the same language in it.
But was your point that we had to have identical language to those states? And if so, what's the authority on that?
There is no authority. It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
But that is a recommendation that we had, and I think that we got that with when the
Well, one of the proponents advocated that, but I've not. One of the proponents, the same one that said that, said read, and I've been reading and reading and reading, and I've not found anything in my readings that said the resolutions have to be identical. But thank you. I just wanted to raise that point.
I appreciate that. And Article 5 does not say that it has to be identical. I agree with that. But Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say something very similar to what the previous representative said, is that, yes, I understand that it's important to at least have some sort of universal language, but we really do need to keep in mind that we are the Kansas legislature. We are charged by our constituents to make sure that we are doing Kansas things, not things that anyone at the federal level expect us to do. I think one of the issues that I've had with this bill, and it's been brought to this committee a number of times, is that every time there's always some congressperson from another state, someone from back east that's coming here to tell us our business and tell us how to do things. State legislatures are our own governing bodies. We are not subject to what some congressperson says. And I really want us to continue. We might see conservative amendments to this. You never know what's going to come up after the one that we're currently working. But to say that we shouldn't amend something and we should do things the way that the feds want us to do, that's not very respectful to our own constituents. We need to do things the way that Kansas does them. And so if we are going to be different, well, that's something that our state is kind of good at anyway. And so I think we need to continue being independent as we go through this process and as we work this bill. Thank you. And obviously I support the amendment. Should not surprise anyone.
Well, but I would make a comment that the last senator was from Oklahoma that came in. So he wasn't from the East Coast. He was to our south.
Yes, but still not from our state and still, you know, Washington politics. This isn't Washington. We're better than they are.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to clarify that he was not from the East Coast. That would have insulted him if you'd have called him from the East Coast, out of Oklahoma. I go next to Representative Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really unique amendment. I felt like my concerns were really heard. I did ask many people about what is tribal representation going to be brought to this new form. They say, read the Constitution. I said, we're in there as merciless savages. So how is this going to assure that we have a seat at the table? I think that was one of my main concerns with this bill, is how are the delegates going to be picked? I understand there's a trailer bill, but again, it doesn't give me much confidence in black and white that tribal representation will be considered and not continue to be ignored. I do support the amendment. I think it's really unique, and thank you for hearing my concerns.
Thank you. Representative Penn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
One of the things, I'm not going to support the amendment. One of the things that we bring up, and when we consider in Article 5.
You were out of turn. I call on Representative Penn. You're next.
Okay.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was coughing, so it probably sounded like him. Just to help me in my understanding, we have the amendment. Now we have a substitute for that amendment.
That is correct.
Is it in order to, is it allowable to offer a substitute amendment to that substitute?
No.
Roger that. Well, the question that I have is, where does this stop? Because if we start going down the lane of every demographic being included as an amendment, for representation in the underlying bill, where does it stop? Everyone has a carve out. I think that we are all Kansans, and I would say that the substitute amendment should say a Kansas citizen. Never thought I'd say this, but I'm in agreement with the previous speaker saying that we're Kansas and we do Kansas things. If you were to put language in here, make it Kansas citizens, pull us together instead of doing the ad nauseum dilution and division. And let's just keep it simple.
Thank you. Representative Smith now.
I apologize to the committee. I'm hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids. I have a hard time hearing, so I apologize for stepping on your
It was
feet.
probably my fault. I didn't speak up.
So anyway, the idea that this is a state thing is only partial. We're operating under an Article 5 once we adopt this, so we have to look at what can be attacked on it. And so we look back in history on different Article 5 convention cases, and we see that there is some court activity on whether one call is identical to the next, and identical is a subjective term, right? What is identical? We're putting Kansas in this one, so it's not identical. But the basic premise of has to be something similar to, and we know that from previous court cases. And I'm not going to sit here and cite them or read through the book on what they say, but that's why we need to try and stay as close as possible to it, so that should the argument come up, we can show that we were in aggregation with other states. And that's the purpose of it.
Thank you. No other. Yes, Representative Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a point of concern, any amendment that's offered on this resolution, you feel, and I'll direct this to the representative to speak about changing the resolution with amendments, you will be speaking out against all these amendments that come up, because there's a pretty good pile over here.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion. Representative, you may move your substitute amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask for support, as the process continues on. I think this is a way, once again, to include voices that have been historically left out of our process. And I close and move my amendment.
Thank you. You have heard the motion of Representative Hoyt for her substitute amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Noes does have it. Motion fails. I'm sorry? Division has been called for. All in favor of the substitute motion, raise the right hand.
8.
8.
Oh, wait. 9. I didn't, sorry, I didn't get 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Very well. All in opposed to the amendment.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Thank you. The noes have it. Noes does have it. Back on the original amendment. Representative Hoyt, do you wish to close on your original amendment?
Yeah. Why not? Let's keep trying. I close and move the amendment.
Thank you. Now we're back on her original amendment, which was the Kansas State Representative or Kansas Senate, who is a Native American, to appoint to that committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Noes do have it. Amendment fails. We're back on the resolution. Other comments on the resolution? Yes, Representative Heiberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not quite sure where to start with this one, but I'll start with one of the conferees who was waving around the document she identified as the Freedoms Frontier National Heritage Area Management Plan as an example of the tyranny of the federal government. Well, I was on the Lawrence City Commission when the Freedoms Frontier National Heritage Area was adopted. It's a plan to increase tourism. And I went back and reviewed the management plan and the authorizing document. There's nothing in it or in the authorizing statute that gives that body power to do anything to anybody. It's anything they do with the landowner is completely voluntary, says so in red letters on the cover of the plan. So if there's a member of this committee who thinks that the Freedoms Frontier National Heritage Area Management Plan is tyranny, just let me know. I would be happy to start a GoFundMe campaign to buy you a ticket to a place where you can see the real deal. I did a little calculating. It's not clear what the rules of this convention would be, although I think it's probably fair to assume that it's going to be one state, one vote, and operating by a majority vote. So, and that's the case by my calculation. States with a combined population of 16% of the U.S. population could make decisions on a body like this. I find that a little concerning. Again, there's no until we pass the trailer bill, there's no method of selection for the members, but I think we can fairly assume that it's going to be reflective, the membership of the House here and the Senate. There's going to be similar percentages. It's likely to have a supermajority who are willing to make such fair and wise decisions as the redistricting plan that we passed last week. And so I can only assume that any decision made by a Kansas delegation at this convention is going to be something that a vast majority of my constituents are going to find distasteful. And so I guess that's incentive for me to not support that. I understand that all the convention can do is propose amendments. But I guess my fear is the amendments that are likely to come out of a convention like this are going to be really divisive. And even if none of them pass anywhere, they're more likely to throw fuel on the flames of the partisan splits that we're seeing right now, rather than to do anything to fix them. That's my major concern here. And finally, as one of the conferees pointed out, that a member of this committee last year was pushing the notion that the House and the Senate of Kansas can pass this resolution by a majority vote rather than 2/3 as established in our Constitution by the amendment passed by the citizens of Kansas. And if the proponents of this, if that's the way they feel about the will of the people, then I think this thing could be a very dangerous thing indeed. And so I will be voting no with a number of typographical marks in front of it.
Thank you very much, Representative. Further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. Representative Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment.
You have an amendment. Could you hold just a second while it gets passed out?
Would you like me to explain it to save some time?
While they're doing that, would you explain it?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Every member of this committee swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Kansas and the United States. What I'm going to do with this amendment is that the will of the people of the state of Kansas changed the Constitution, and I'm merely inserting Article 2, Section 13, quoting that section, which claims that there is to be a 2/3 majority for passage in both houses of the Kansas Legislature. And that pretty much sums up my amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll stand for questions.
Members, do you have questions of the carrier of the amendment? Representative Arnkamp?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the amendment I have talks more about I think it's my amendment that I had drafted. It might not be Representative Hauser's.
You handed out the wrong one, Mike.
Okay. So this will possibly be introduced later so we can keep the amendment with us.
Yeah, hang on to it. I think.
Okay.
It's all right. It's a good cat.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Hauser. Well, I was looking at the other amendment when you were explaining it, and I was having trouble.
I couldn't follow.
Mike's trying to keep you on the toe.
Okay. Well,
Mike has me this time.
Would you care for me to redo that, Mr. Chair?
I would like for you to restate
Okay, as I stated before, we've all sworn in an oath of office to uphold the state constitution as well as the Constitution of the United States. The people of the state of Kansas have made it known through the Constitution of the state of Kansas of the requirements for the request of an article of convention. So I thought it would be prudent and wise to include in the will of the people of the state of Kansas in a resolution that is calling for Congress to call a commission of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the United States Constitution. That is the basis of my amendment. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. That's the amendment. Stand for questions. Questions of the carrier of the amendment. Yes, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, you had testified during the hearing in opposition to this resolution for an application for a convention of states. So does this amendment mean that you would be supportive?
You can't ask that question.
I can't ask that question.
Can't ask.
I
question.
apologize.
If you get your amendment on, will you then vote for the bill? Can't ask that question. It's not allowed.
Okay.
Okay. And Representative Miller's out of line.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back. But I was just curious, since he had testified in opposition, kind of where what his intention was with this, because this is already in the state constitution. It's in our House rules that we adopted. So how does this improve the resolution? Thank you.
Thank you. Representative, you may respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel it's prudent that we include these words. This is the will of the people of the state of Kansas. And this is serious business, folks. If you're putting in if you're putting in an application to Congress to go in and change amendments to, or even totally change the Constitution of the United States, that's serious business. And we need to respect how serious this is. And I want to know, it should be on record in this resolution, the will of the people of the state of Kansas requiring 2/3 majority vote in both houses. That's why it should be in there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment. Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the bringing of the amendment. As I read it over, it looks to be redundant for what we already have promulgated before the citizens of Kansas in our Constitution, and a simple understanding of the Constitution of the United States for ratification of anything amendments therein. I would not be supportive of this amendment, and I encourage others to do the same.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment. Representative Hyber. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just in case the body has forgot, I'd like to point out that the current Attorney General of Kansas has issued an opinion stating that we don't have to abide by the 2/3 rule for voting on this amendment. So I find that of some concern, and I'll support the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment. Representative, you may represent. Oh, we have it's been explained. I need a second. Second, Representative Hoyt. Thank you. Representative, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to a previous comment from a fellow committee member, I find nothing redundant about putting what the will of the people of the state of Kansas have already spelled out in our own Constitution. I feel that their will should be followed, regardless of what an attorney general may have said. How we do that, we're saying that the people of the state of Kansas have no authority when in fact they give us all authority. They are the authority. They're the ones that give us our authority. We do not have authority over them. So with that, I would think that anybody that holds their oath of office and their responsibility to uphold the Kansas Constitution would vote in favor of this. So there I move my motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You've heard Representative Hauser move his motion to amend House Concurrent Resolution 5027. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair? Opinion of the chair. The noes have it. Division has been called for. All in favor of the amendment, raise their right hand. Those, did you get everybody? Yeah. Okay. Those opposed? The motion fails.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to have my vote recorded.
Connie, if you would, and I'm going to go through with their hands up. Vote, Representative Arnkamp was an aye. Representative Hoyt was an aye. Representative Clayton was an aye. Representative Heiberger was an aye. You've got yours recorded, Representative Hauser. Nothing further. Thank you. We are back on the House Concurrent Resolution 5027. Further discussion. Representative Arnkamp, do you wish to be recognized?
Thank you. I have an amendment, and it's the amendment that was just handed out before Representative Hauser's.
Yeah, we have that one already, so
yes, sir.
You may go forward and explain your amendment, please.
There's a lot of uncertainty about the Convention of States, a lot of questions. The amendment simply states that if the convention is not called, if the 2/3 of the states have not made a similar application by June 30th, 2027, so a little over 5 years, our application here in Kansas is automatically rescinded.
Thank you. You have explained your amendment. Is there a second to the amendment? Representative Miller is the second. Discussion.
Smith.
Who?
Smith.
Oh, Representative Smith. Okay. You're hearing my eyes, maybe. That's.
I'm going to get a little flag. I think that's what I'll do. So anyway, there's some discussion on whether or not that's needed, simply because the power to rescind an application for a convention is in every state's hands. They can rescind this at any time. There doesn't have to be a sunset. It simply has to be brought up for a vote to rescind the It's an unnecessary addition to this, and adds another piece that would have to be vetted under the aggregation with other states. So I'm going to be voting against this amendment.
Thank you. Yep, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been voting for some of these amendments. I'm a strong supporter of this one, but I do want to say I'm a strong supporter of the underlying resolution. I'm very excited about what a convention of states might end up in the way of product. Such far-ranging issues as the right to bear arms as being revisited, as my friend from Cherokee has mentioned. A couple Supreme Court justices have suggested that's exactly the way to do that, would be through a convention of states. Roe v. Wade, for those concerned about Roe v. Wade being in jeopardy, Convention of States would be a very good way to supplant that as a written part of our Constitution and not just an interpretive opinion of the Supreme Court. The subjects that are listed in the resolution before us, I don't have any particular problem with either. It's one of the reasons I support it. But as to the amendment, there's a lot of cloudiness as to when the ratification process ends. I was here, well, actually I wasn't here yet. It happened just before I got here that Kansas ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. And today there is an argument going on whether or not additional states can still be added to accomplish the 3/4 states requirement for ratification. This amendment that's being offered eliminates those kinds of questions as it relates to the Convention of States process. And I think for purposes of clarity, it's a good one. And I don't happen to believe that it is a amendment that jeopardizes what we're trying to do. 5 years politically is a long time, and the climate can change. So I think it's good that in today's climate, the environment that I view, I support the Convention of States, but 5 years from now, I'm not sure I still would. And I don't want to have to revisit it if we can put an amendment in here that settles that issue here and now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Hauser?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be in support of this amendment. I think it's a great amendment. How many of y'all know how many active applications from the state of Kansas are still on the books? Anybody care to guess? There's 5. They date back to 1909. Last one was in 1978. And they range from everything from direct election of senators to a balanced budget amendment. So I agree with the previous speaker. Political times change. There should be a sunset on these things. There may have been one in there that we wouldn't agree with today, but it's still an application. So I stand in support of this amendment. I urge you to vote the same.
Thank you. No further questions. Representative, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We see sunsets put on a lot of legislation. It's because it may seem like a good idea now. In a few years, things may happen, which may show that there's a little bit of concern. We may need to take another look at it. This just requires the legislature to take another look at it. If it passes, I close and move my amendment.
Thank you. You have heard Representative Arnkamp close on his amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair? Noes have it. A division has been called for. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those opposed to the amendment, raise your right hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Thank you. The motion to amend has failed. We are back on the resolution. Yes. Anyone else would like to have their vote recorded? Saying Representative Hoyt was an aye. Representative Clayton was an aye. Representative Heiberger was an aye. I think that's all. Thank you. We're back on the resolution. Further discussion? Saying none. Representative, do you wish to close on your? Well, no? Who made the motion to pass this? You made the motion. Do you have a comment?
Just a comment.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe Kansas is a regional agency of the federal government, and with that, that's why I'm supporting this resolution for a convention of states. It serves as a check to the federal government, and our founders put in Article 5 of the Constitution as an additional check. Now, I don't believe that Congress should be the only body to propose amendments to the Constitution. I believe states are entrusted with that tool, that responsibility. And so that is why I wholeheartedly support this. At the very least, an application for a convention of states does send a message to Congress, to the federal government, that there is concern about a $30 trillion publicly held debt and, an out of control centralized government. So we are a sovereign state, and I do support this resolution and would ask my colleagues to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion. Representative Arnberger, you may move your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises, or I guess I can't say that, when the committee rises and report, I move that we pass out House Concurrent Resolution 5027 favorably for passage.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Representative Epley has seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Chair is unsure. All in favor, raise your right hand.
14.
Those opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Thank you. The resolution passes out. Anyone want their vote recorded? Okay, Representative Hoheisel, that was a yes, is a yes. Give me the yeses first. Yes, Representative Penn, Representative Epley, Representative Howell, Representative Mosier, Representative Smith. Did you want your vote? Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah, got everybody. The noes that want to record, Representative Wagner, you want yours recorded? Thank you. The noes now. Representative Heiberger, no. Representative Hazelwood, Representative Hauser, Representative Clayton, Representative Hoyt, and Representative Arncamp. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, may I have the typographical symbols in front of my no in the record?
If you like, we'll put that in the minutes. Thank you, committee. Let's take, we're moving fairly fast here, I think. I would like for you to go into your file and pull out Senate Bill 2. This passed the Senate last year. We got it at the very last. I'm going to ask research. What were the numbers in the Senate? Can you pull that up real fast? I had it and I can't seem to. As many of the committee members will know, yesterday I was kind of lost because Connie wasn't here. In 8 years, it's the first time she ever missed one with me. It was not a good day. But do you have that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SB 2 passed the Senate last year 31-8.
31-8. Thank you. As to the pleasure of the committee, as to Senate Bill number 2, or the pleasure.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out Senate Bill 2 favorably for passage.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Representative Miller? No, Representative Epley. Oh, if you want to revise her, we heard it on. Mike, would you give us a brief overview of 2? Pull one of those mics over.
This bill relates to the Kansas State Fair, and let me grab the bill instead of all of these amendments here. The gist of the amendments, I think, are that it would add wine to temporary permit holders could sell wine or beer for consumption on the premises of the state fairground. And there are some other amendments dealing with temporary permit. It would require that there be a 3-dimensional barrier where the alcohol could be served and so on. It also provides in terms of a different scheme for remittance of taxes, the liquor drink tax and the gallonage tax. 30% would be credited to the state general fund, and 70% of these taxes would go to a fair fund. I think that's the gist of the bill.
I think you're correct. Question of the reviser. This was brought to the Senate, and we when we had a hearing on it, if you'll recall, the director of the state fair had proposed this as not only to allow it, but to receive the funds, or 70% of the funds that are from the sale, the tax would go to the fair fund when they've indicated they needed the additional revenue. Now I will take a second. It was Representative Epley. Was you the second? Did he leave? He was the second. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to discussion now. Yes, Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment.
You have an amendment. If you'll pass that out, and would you explain your amendment, why it's being passed out?
Yes, I have been working with ABC on this. All my amendment is doing is talking about temporary permits. Great Bend has a common consumption area in that we just added last year, so that's how I've really got to know more about the common consumption district that we passed a couple of years ago. Actually, it was more than just a couple of years ago. So some of the hiccups that we ran into in Great Bend that I wanted to really bring forward, which makes sense. The first one is on page 5. It states that no city or county or township shall charge more than $25 each day for which it's for a temporary permit. Currently, ABC charges $25 for a temporary permit, and some cities and counties and townships, whoever it is, they're charging $150 to $250 for a temporary permit each time. So it's just stating that basically that no city, county, or township can charge more than what ABC is currently charging. The next area that I'm changing is on page 7, where currently only if you want a temporary permit, you only are allowed 4 for the whole entire year. I'm proposing to change it to 12 because there's 12 months in a year. That's where I came up with the number, maybe 1 per month. So that's where that number came from. And then the last one is, this is ABC, this is their big concern. They said 100 temporary permits that were issued last year, the temporary permit holder never paid their taxes from that temporary permit. So this is just stating that if you are going to get another temporary permit, that you must have your taxes paid in paid up until you can get your next one. So that was one of their big concerns. And so, like I said, I worked with ABC on this. They said they really have this doesn't really affect anything for them. And they did ask, originally I wanted to strike that there was even a number for temporary permits, but they had some concerns with that. So that's where 12 came into play.
Thank you. The amendment has been explained. Is there a second? Representative Mosier is the second. Kind of shocked me as they issued a temporary permit. They had to issue a second one. They haven't paid the taxes on the first one. So I really think that this is important. Reverend Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Arnberger, for this amendment. Can you just expand a little bit? So you said there was 100 permits issued last year and no taxes paid on a single one of them? Is that?
There were more, but there were 100 of them. No taxes were collected. Okay. Were not paid.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wagner.
Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 2, all of the changes are relating to the Kansas State Fair. I would ask about the germaneness of this amendment, that it's going a totally different direction, and that would be my objection.
Just stand by.
We can't hear, sir.
Oh, I said I've looked at the and I've talked with ABC, the areas that it touches. They have the 2 points of contact that's required. So the chair will find that it is germane. Okay.
I don't necessarily object to it overall, but I just, being a part of the state fair bill, it seems like a real stretch. But again, I yield to the chair.
Thank you. Further discussion? Did I get a second? I did. Okay. Representative Miller. Oh, Representative Mosier with the second. Did you have a question, Representative, or should I? Okay, Representative Miller, do you have a comment?
Question.
Question for the reviser or for the carrier of the amendment?
For the carrier. First of all, she mentioned there were 12 months in a year. How many of those months have 30 days? It was on Jeopardy the other day. Moving on. On page 5 at the bottom.
There's a rhyme about that, if you recall.
Oh, I can click them on.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Down at the bottom where we're making the $25 applied to other jurisdictions, I see in the section above that for the state, it's non-refundable. Would you accept a friendly amendment to also make this section non-refundable?
Sure.
I'd offer that as a friendly amendment.
Would you make that as a substitute to include the original amendment with that substitute?
Yeah, Mike, hold on.
Would you,
if you prefer that process, absolutely, I'll make that as a substitute.
Substitute to add that one clause in there?
Yeah, I support that.
Well, it's actually, my substitute is to adopt the amendment with the additional language that it would be non-refundable.
That's correct. Oh, Representative Connie, I don't see, you have to get it high because Connie is right in my line of fire here. Go ahead, Representative Smith.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm just a question to the reviser. This is a bill concerning, it starts by saying the Kansas State Fair. As a result, when you say in that subsection, that amendment, no city, county, or township, does it have to only apply to the Kansas State Fair, or I'm a little worried about that.
The title, I think, is written broad enough. It deals with alcoholic liquor. I could reverse the concerning the Kansas State Fair relating to alcoholic liquor. To me, the title is broad enough. I could switch it around to say concerning alcoholic liquor and have the state fair the second. But I don't think, as written, I think it's okay, but I can switch that around if that would be the desire of the committee.
Well, to be clear, my concern would be that it would apply to all jurisdictions, not just the state fair. And I think that was
the titles don't have to be that specific, and they're in, as long as it covers the subjects that are in the bill, it's fine.
I would ask the maker of the amendment, your intent is to apply this only to the state fair, is that correct?
No, my intent is to apply this across the whole entire state. If you see in section 2, it's just, we're stating what the current statute is, and it's already in the bill. So that's where I found my point of contact, that it's already stated in the bill, and we're just amending what is current statute.
I'm glad I asked that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the substitute amendment? Representative Epley?
Just a brief comment. I mean, a lot of us have common consumption areas, and I think this amendment plus the friendly or whatever the substitute is needed. I think it covers that nicely, and I think it's germane, and I think we should go forward with the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad the previous representative asked that question, because I'm going to have to be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a second.
Oh, second on the substitute.
The substitute, you're correct. I had a second on the substitute, right. And she seconded it. She agreed to it. Okay. Nothing further. Close on your amendment, Representative Miller. A substitute amendment.
I move my amendment.
Thank you. You've heard Representative Miller move his substitute amendment on Senate Bill 2. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Now, we're back on the original amendment. Representative, would you like to withdraw that?
My amendment?
Your original amendment. The substitute has just been passed.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I'm offering.
Thank you. She's withdrawn her original amendment, and the substitute is passed.
She didn't have to withdraw it. The adoption of the substitute nullifies the original motion. Now we're back to the bill.
I understand that, but I'm the chairman, and I get to decide how we proceed.
Okay.
Thank you. She has withdrawn her amendment. Thank you very much. We're back on the original bill. Discussion. Thank you, Representative Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment.
You have an amendment. Has it been passed out? They're passing it out now?
I believe it's my amendment. Could
Why
be somebody else's. No, I'm kidding.
While they are passing out the amendment, would you like to explain your amendment?
The amendment is really simple. If we're going to allow alcoholic beverages, we might as well allow all of them. So it just includes all alcoholic beverages instead of just beer and wine.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
They're handing out the amendment. The carrier of the amendment was very brief in his description. My understanding is instead of beer and wine, this would include spirits. Would that be not correct? Representative Thomas, if I have your attention, please.
Yes, sir.
I said my understanding of your amendment, which was very brief in your description, was you're going from wine to spirits to, from wine and beer to spirits. Would that be correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Questions for the carrier of the amendment? Seeing no questions for the carrier of the amendment, I'm sorry. Representative Wagner?
Yes, as many of you know, I represent Hutchinson, the North Side. The State Fair is in my district, in the 104th District. We are aware of Representative Thomas's amendment, and I did talk to them. I just wanted to read a statement since from our General Manager, Brian Schultz. He says, I was able to talk with a couple of our board members concerning the amendment to Senate Bill 2 that would allow hard alcohol on the fairgrounds. From the sampling I took, there is no opposition to adding this if the Kansas State Fair Board has full control as to when and how the addition of hard alcohol will be added to the grounds. They would be opposed to adding this if it would be something that would be mandated without their input. Again, I think the amendment, as I see this, just authorizes the State Fair Board, and they still...
And they make the choice.
Yes, so in that sense, I would be supportive of the amendment, and the State Fair would as well.
Sorry, Garber? I'm sorry, go ahead.
This may be technical, but should that not be alcoholic beverage, not alcoholic liquor?
I'll turn that over to the reviser.
I think it's fine the way it is. Let me get the definitions from 41-101 here just a second.
Okay, we'll stand by.
I'll second the amendment though.
While the reviser is looking at that, the amendment has been explained. I have a second from Representative Arnberger. Go ahead, reviser.
Alcoholic liquor is the term used in the
definition.
Alcoholic retail section of its 41-102. So it is a correct word.
Thank you. Further questions of the carrier of the minute? Representative Reese, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe this is directed to Mike. On section B, at the bottom of the page, on the first page of the bill, alcoholic liquor may be consumed within common consumption areas. That includes spirits, correct? We just said.
With the amendment.
So is it with the amendment?
With the
Okay, thank you.
And it would be up to the discretion of the fair board to make that decision.
Common consumption area is a separate issue. This amendment relates to what can be served at the fairgrounds.
Right. Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Thomas, you may move your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move my amendment.
Thank you. I've heard Representative Thomas move to amend Senate Bill 2. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. We are back on the Senate Bill 2. As to that, further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Mike, please.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a technical amendments that the committee needs to adopt, and I'll pass those out.
I will introduce the technical amendment, and Representative Miller will probably second it. Yeah. It is a technical amendment from the reviser. I always try to keep the reviser's office happy. And take a second. Would you explain it, Mike, please?
Basically, this bill came over from the Senate last year. There are references to the supplement, which there will be a new volume printed for Chapter 3, 3A, and 3B, and so you don't need the 2020 supplement in the different places that it appears. And I think there's a provision in here dealing with the open records, which is a year out of date because of the waiting till 2022. So they are literally technical, and I can go through each one if you want, but it's.
Thank you. Questions of the revisor? The amendment has been explained. I have a second from Representative Miller. For no further discussion, all in favor of the chairman's motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Ayes do have it. We have our technical amendment. Now I will look for Representative Arnberger for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I close, I want to let the committee know that there are two other amendments that I am working with ABC on and some attorneys back home that I will be bringing to the floor if we can come up to an agreement. But I just want to be in full transparency with the committee that I'm just letting you guys know that I'm still working on two other things. With that, Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out Senate Bill 2 favorably for passage as amended.
You've heard the motion, and I have a second. Representative Epley is seconded. All in further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senate Bill 2 passes out favorably. Committee, we're meeting Monday. We have a hearing, and we may work a couple of bills. If I can get that decided today, I will have Connie send it out. It will not be any of the bills that we didn't work any today or hear any today, yesterday or the day before. With that, anything else for the good of the committee? I want everybody to have a great weekend. It's like the Army days. Representative Garber, remember those days when you had 48-hour pass? You've got a 48-hour pass. You can come back and see you then. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Be safe.